All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Katie Metz. I am with the National Disability Institute, and I want to thank you for joining us for our webinar. It's Supplemental Security Income, SSI, and SSI Work Incentives. You can make an informed choice about your work. We also want to thank, of course, the Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities, who has made today's webinar possible through their funding. We're going to go over a few housekeeping items real quick. As you're listening to the webinar, it is being broadcast through your computer, so please make sure that your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. You can also control the audio broadcast via the audio broadcast panel. And if you accidentally close that panel, you can reopen it from the top menu by selecting Communicate and then Join Audio Broadcast. If you don't have sound capabilities on your computer, no worries, or if you prefer just to listen by phone, you can do so by dialing in to our toll-free number 1-855-244-8681, or dialing directly 650-479-3207. And then you will enter the meeting code 664-946-548. All of this is also displayed, of course, on the PowerPoint. If you have any questions, we're going to give you some contact information for technical difficulties as well. Our webinar today is being closed captioned with real-time captioning. The captions can be found in the media viewer, which appears in the lower right corner of the webinar platform. If you want to make that media viewer panel larger, you can minimize the other panels like the chat, the Q&A, or the participants. As we move forward today, we will do our presentation and then save a little bit of time, hopefully, for questions at the end. As you're going through, if you want to make sure that we capture those questions, you can submit them for Q&A by using the chat box or the Q&A box to send any questions you may have to myself, Katie Metz, or we will direct the questions accordingly, like I said, during that Q&A portion later on. If you're listening by phone and you're not logged into the webinar, you can also ask questions by emailing them directly to my colleague, mredbn@ndi-inc.org. Please note the webinar is being recorded today, and all the materials will be made public within 2 weeks of the event, including closed captioning, so you'll be able to listen to the recording later on. If you have any technical assistance needs during the webinar today, you can use the chat box to send a message to the host, Maggie, or you can also email her at the email address we just provided, mredbn@ndi-inc.org. Again, my name is Katie Metz. I'm with National Disability Institute, and I am pleased to be moderating today. I'm also very pleased to welcome my colleague, Elizabeth Jennings. She will be presenting today and going over today's agenda, which will be the overview of SSI, the impact of work on SSI benefits, where you can turn for assistance, financial capability resources, and then as mentioned earlier, we'll cap it off with some Q&A and suggested next steps as long as our wrap up. Again, a very special thank you to the Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities for their funding and opportunity to bring you this information today. With that, very quickly, I'll just kind of give you a brief overview. Elizabeth is our Deputy Director with NDI, and she is a national trainer on Social Security benefits and asset development strategies for persons with disabilities. She has extensive experience in building and expanding relationships between the disability and asset building communities. And so we're very pleased that she's able to come on today and be able to give you this great information around SSI and work incentives. So with that, I will turn it over to Elizabeth to take over.
Great. Thank you so much, Katie, and thank you, Maggie, for being on as our technical host. And thank you to all of you who have joined today. There's over 100 folks on the line so far, and I can see that you're from all over the country. But I want to start off by reminding everyone on the line that today's event has specifically been crafted for individuals within the state of Texas. And Texas does follow the federal SSI rules, so there'll be just a couple things that are different. So if you're listening in from another state, just please be careful of when I say something is just for folks in Texas, that you make a little note of that. And if you have any questions at the back end of this event, you just want to double check if something was for Texas or for everybody. You're going to have my contact information as well as my colleagues, and you're welcome to reach out to us. So a little about National Disability Institute. If you're new to one of our webinars, we're a national research and development organization with a mission to promote income preservation and asset development for persons with disabilities and to build a better economic future for Americans with disabilities. So today we're not only going to talk about Social Security disability benefits, SSI in particular, and SSI work incentives, but we're also going to talk a little bit about making the decision to go to work and deciding at what level to work, and then a little bit about financial capability or how to have more control over your personal finances and where to get support for some of that education. But back to the real show. So today we're going to focus on Social Security disability benefits. As many of you on the line know, there's two different programs through the Social Security Administration to support individuals with disabilities who have an inability to work at a substantial level. There's SSDI, or the Social Security Disability Insurance, and there's SSI, or the Supplemental Security Income. Many people who receive either of these benefits, and many of you are on the line today, really want to work or return to work, but aren't quite sure what will happen to these benefits when you make that choice. Or you may have been given some misinformation, or you may have made an attempt to go to work and something happened that has now really concerned you. So we want to make sure that you have some good information that we'll provide today, and that you have an idea of some of the work incentives that Social Security provides to make it possible for you to test your ability to work and continue to receive some or all of your cash and health benefits. If you're somebody who receives SSDI or you're working with folks who receive SSDI, we did a webinar on SSDI with the funding from the Texas DD Council. So you can find that on their website, and we're going to provide that to you. Or you can also go to National Disability Institute's website, and again, we'll provide that to you at the end. And I'm sorry, we have a little bit of typo here in the first sentence, so we're going to correct that. But folks, in order to be eligible for SSI or for SSDI, have to prove two things. They have to prove that they have a documented medical disability that will last 12 months or longer or result in death. And so the Social Security's definition of disability is the inability to engage in substantial gainful activity, which we're going to talk about, by reason of any documented medical impairment, physical or mental, that will last 12 months or longer and or result in death. So folks always have to meet two things. They have to prove they have a documented medical disability that will last 12 months or longer or result in death. And because of that documented medical disability, they are no longer able to engage in substantial gainful activity. So people have to do both. I have a documented medical disability, and because of that documented medical disability, I'm not able to work and earn a substantial amount of money. So substantial gainful activity is a key component of making sure that you meet the eligibility rules to come onto the rolls. It's a basic test that is used, and Social Security is trying to determine, can you perform significant mental or physical duties for earnings? It's determined each year, and the levels for this year for a person who is non-blind is $11.70 per month, and for a person who is blind is $19.50 per month. So Social Security looks at this as folks are coming on to the rolls. That's how they determine, okay, your medical documentation will show you have a documented medical disability that will last 12 months or longer or result in death. And then your work history or other aspects that they'll review will help them to better understand, we know you have a documented medical condition, but does it prevent you from working and earning at the SGA level, which again this year is $1170 per month. So folks are always looking at Social Security is always looking at both sides. And I think this is really easy to recognize in the famous actor Christopher Reeves. He played Superman. I may be starting to age myself with this example since he's passed, but he was a person who had a documented medical disability. Nobody would disagree. He had a spinal cord injury. Everybody would agree that was a person with a disability. But did his disability prevent him from working at a substantial level? And that's where it gets more gray. And I would assume Social Security would argue, no, his documented medical disability did not prevent him from working and earning a substantial amount of money, what with speaking engagements and starting a foundation and being the head of that, all of the other things. So use that as an example. So when somebody's concerned about going to work, it makes sense because they had to prove that they have a documented medical disability and that it prevents them from working. That's how they got on. Then for folks who receive SSI, there are additional levels of eligibility that are looked at. So SSI is administered through the Social Security Administration and paid for through general revenue. So it provides cash benefits and health care insurance in the form of Medicaid to individuals who are disabled, as we just discussed, or over age 65. SSI has a maximum amount per month that folks can receive called the federal benefit rate. That amount for this year is $735 per month. That's for a single person, or an individual, I'm sorry, not a single person, an individual. And then there's also a rate for couples, which we're not going to talk about couples today, but I just want to make sure you know that it exists. And then you also have to meet an asset test or a resource test, which is $2,000 in assets for an individual and $3,000 for an SSI couple. And we're going to talk about some things that don't count as assets. So when Social Security talks about a federal benefit rate, it's federal, so it applies to all of the states, but some of you live in states where there's also a state supplement. Texas is not one of those states, but you might live in a state where people get more than $735 per month. So already you might be thinking, I don't see that, Elizabeth. But the federal benefit rate is $735 per month, and that's the most that an SSI recipient can receive from the Social Security Administration. When they return to work, that amount may change, and we're going to talk about that at length. So SSI looks at countable income, and that's the actual amount an individual receives in SSI will differ based on their income and resources and whether or not they are entitled to the full benefit rate. So when we look to see how much of a person's income is countable, that's going to affect the how much of the full federal benefit rate they're entitled to. So some examples of the income that counts towards countable income is earned income, unearned income, in-kind support, and deemed income. And we're going to talk about some of these. So things that don't count as income are things like food stamps and housing subsidies. Income tax refunds don't count as income. Home energy assistance. Income you set aside in a plan to achieve self-support. We wanted to give you a list of some of those things that don't count as income. And then, as we mentioned, not only does SSI look at income, but it also looks at resources. And that's cash or other liquid assets or real or personal property that an individual owns and could convert to cash. So SSI looks at this each month. So if a person has money come in a month and they save it to the next month and it brings them over the asset limit, it's going to be a resource that next month. So folks should be watching this, and you may see that some people just choose not to have a savings account or choose not to be banked in the hopes that they can avoid appearing as though they have money over the $2,000 mark. And when we get to financial capability, we'll provide a few resources to help with that. There are some things that are excluded from assets or resources, and we want to make sure people know that because $2,000 isn't a terrible amount of money to be allowed to save towards, and there are many things in modern day life that people will need to save for that cost more than $2,000. So understanding some of the ways that people can have assets over $2,000 is really important. The first thing is the home a person lives in and the land it's on, regardless of the value, does not count as a resource. One vehicle, regardless of the value, to meet the transportation needs of the individual does not count. Property that's set aside in a properly identified business does not count. Resources in a past plan, special needs in pool trusts, life insurance, burial funds, retroactive SSI or SSDI benefits, income tax refunds, as we mentioned, are excluded for 12 months. Federally funded individual development accounts and ABLE accounts, the new ABLE accounts that we'll talk about in a third webinar to be released this summer in August. So once a person comes on to SSI, they have proven that they have a documented medical disability that will last 12 months or longer or result in death, and because of that disability, they're not able to work at a substantial level. They've met the income limit, they've met the asset limit. Then they will come onto the SSI rolls and they will receive Medicaid. And in the state of Texas, that happens automatically. But in some of your states, that does not happen automatically, so that's one to note. And as many of you know, Medicaid is state administered. It's a medical insurance program, and for folks on SSI, it typically starts right away. One thing that happens to everybody who comes onto the rolls, so I just want to briefly make you aware, is that they'll receive a continuing disability review. At certain intervals of times, for some people it's 1 year, for some people it's 3, some people it's 5, some people it's 7. They are checked to see if they continue to have the documented medical condition that they are receiving the disability benefit for. And this is typically done through a mailer that comes to people in the mail. For some folks, it can be a little concerning. Some people have cyclical disabilities, and so it could come at a time when they're doing quite well in their health, and so it can pose a real threat. Some people do have disabilities from which they medically improve, and that's what Social Security is checking for. And even if you have a lifetime disability that will never improve, you will still receive these mailers from time to time, and it's your responsibility to fill it out with your current medical information. The people who don't receive a CDR mailer are folks who have their ticket assigned and are actively working in the Ticket to Work program, working towards their plan. They don't have to yet be employed. And that's one of the benefits of the Ticket to Work program. And we're going to give you a resource for more information on that. So now that I'm on the SSI rolls and I'm thinking about going to work, I'm going to want to know what happens to my cash benefit and to my health care benefit when I go to work. And what happens in the community is people get a little bit of information about SSI or SSDI, and they tend to share it and mix it up with the two programs. So we gave you a quick little work incentives comparison chart so you could see at a glance that on the left side are the Social Security Disability Insurance work incentives, and there are several listed there. And on the right side is the Supplemental Security Income work incentive list. And they do share a few work incentives, but many are different. And it's our way of reminding folks that the two programs are not interchangeable, and it's really important that folks get the information that pertains to the program that they receive. And so we're going to give you some resources to do that. But if you are on the line and you receive Social Security Disability Insurance, this is not a great webinar to listen to. This is going to talk about Supplemental Security Income, and the rules are different for the two programs. So let's start with talking about SSI and Income. And I'm thoughtful that we have a short webinar today, so we're not going to cover everything, but we're going to post the slides for you along with an archive of this webinar. Unearned income is income like a Social Security disability benefit, deemed income, income that Social Security believes should be available to you from your spouse or from your sponsor or from a parent to a child, and in-kind support. That's really food and shelter that's provided to you that counts as in-kind support. Each month, Social Security looks to see what kind of unearned income did you get that month. And if you did get any unearned income, like in the example we have here, the person gets SSDI of $675 per month. They'll receive a general income exclusion of $20, and the rest is going to count as their countable income, $655. That's deducted from the federal benefit rate of $735, and their adjusted SSI amount would be $80. This assumes that the person is just getting unearned income. They have no earnings yet. So that individual would receive their SSDI of $675 and an SSI payment of $80 for a monthly income of $755. And how much a person gets is based on formulas like this one that we did with unearned income, and we're going to do several for earned income. So let's dive right in with somebody who has decided to go to work part-time at $15 per hour. They're earning $1,200 per month, and the first thing, we're going to assume that they have no unearned income. So this is just somebody getting earned income and receiving SSI. SSI will deduct $20. That's the general income exclusion. It wasn't used for unearned income because they didn't have any. So their new total is $1,180. Then they subtract what's called an earned income exclusion. Because the person earned the money, SSI will give them that $65 credit. So they're down to $1,115. Then that's divided by 2. That's where you hear that 2-for-1 rule that folks sometimes talk about. So their countable earned income, even though they earned $1,200, is $557.50. That's deducted from the federal benefit rate of $735, and the person gets an adjusted SSI amount of $177.50. And when you combine that with their gross earnings of $1,200, they've got a new monthly gross income of $1,377.50, which is much better than the $735 that they were receiving just in SSI alone. One thing that this calculation and all of our calculations assumes today is that the individual was eligible for the full federal benefit rate. And sometimes due to some of those other kinds of unearned income that we didn't get into, a person is not eligible for the full federal benefit rate. So I just want to make sure that you know that. So let's see what happens if this person works full-time. They're going to bump up to $2,400 a month. And just as we did before, they get the first $20 as a general income exclusion, the next $65 off because they earned the money. It's an earned income exclusion. The remainder is $2,315. That's divided by 2, and we're at $1,157.50 for the month in countable earned income. When you deduct that from the federal benefit rate, it's too high. You get to a 0 adjusted SSI amount. So the person has $2,400 in monthly income, but no SSI benefit. And this seems to be where people get really concerned. They've often heard that if you get at least $1 in an SSI payment, you'll hold your Medicaid, but people are resistant to going to $0 in SSI because they're just not sure of what's going to happen. But there's a great work incentive called 1619B, and that's what allows people to work and earn at a level where they're going to get $0 in SSI and still be able to keep their Medicaid benefit. And they'll be allowed to keep their Medicaid benefit if they lost their SSI cash benefit due to earned income. So it's not because I got married and now my spouse's income is being deemed to me in unearned income. It's not because I won the lottery and I'm over the asset limit. but it's because I earned the income. It's from earnings. I still have my disability. I still have my documented medical disability. I have assets under $2,000. I need my Medicaid to work, and Social Security will ask the person, do you need your Medicaid to work? Have you used your Medicaid in the last month? Will you use it in the next month? I've been eligible for SSI for at least 1 month, and I have annual earnings below the state threshold amount. So for the state of Texas, that state threshold amount is $34,821 this year. So many individuals think I'm not allowed to work and earn over the SGA amount of $1,170. And $1,170 over 12 months would be just $14,000. But the truth is, for folks on SSI, if you meet these requirements under 1619B, you're allowed to earn up to $34,821 in 2017. And we haven't talked about SGA at all, have we? We only talked about it when people were trying to come onto the rolls. For folks on SSI, once you're on the rolls, SGA doesn't apply to you. It's something that applies to folks on SSDI. So this is the ceiling that people have to watch for. It's not an SGA amount. It's not only work part-time. It's really work to the level that you're able to, but if you need to hold on to your Medicaid, this is your ceiling. The state threshold amount in your state, which for the state of Texas in 2017 is $34,821. Now, if you happen to be somebody who is on a Medicaid waiver or who for another reason has exceptionally high Medicaid costs, Social Security can consider an individualized threshold amount for you. So before you turn down a higher paying job, you can check to see if an individualized threshold amount can be made available to you, and that may change what your actual ceiling is. So now that you're all excited about how much folks on SSI can earn, we want to keep going with some more examples to share with you some of the other work incentives that apply to folks on SSI and some of the other ways that they really can work and earn and keep some or all of their cash and health care benefits. The first one is the Student Earned Income Exclusion. This is for students who are under age 22. They're regularly attending school, so that means they're taking a course, at least one or more courses of study, and attend classes in a college or university for at least 8 hours a week, or that they're in high school. They can still be in high school, especially folks who are going until they're age 22. This exclusion applies before any other exclusion, so we're going to deduct it first in our example. And individuals don't have to claim the full amount in a month. They can just use how much they need to use for that month, how much money they've earned, but they do have this maximum of $7,200 for the year. So let's take a look at an example of this. Here's an SSI calculation where the student is Andrew. He's a senior who works part-time in a school-based work program. He earns 10 hours a week and works $10 per hour and works 15 hours per week for a total of about $600 per month. He has gross wages of $600. We're going to subtract the Student Earned Income Exclusion, which means we can subtract the full amount, the full $600, up to $1,790 in the month. So Andrew's work actually counts as 0, and he's eligible for his entire SSI benefit. When folks report their earnings to the Social Security Administration and they receive the Student Earned Income Exclusion, they're going to want to make sure that they submit their pay stubs to the local Social Security field office, along with proof of regularly attending school at least 1 month during the current calendar quarter, or that they expect to attend school at least 1 month in the next quarter. The SSI claims rep will review their eligibility for the exclusion, and if approved, adjust their benefit accordingly. They'll also make a note in the record that this is a student so that they won't have to claim this every month that they work. I think it's a really great program, the Student Earned Income Exclusion, and one that could pave the way for many students to be able to go to work. Oftentimes there's a misunderstanding on the parts of the family as to what will happen if the student returns to work. And the family has been advised to use that SSI money for food and shelter. So it may have become part of the kind of family budget since it has to be used for food and shelter. So asking families to allow a student to go to work before they understand the Student Earned Income Exclusion may be met with resistance. Another work incentive is impairment-related work expenses, or IRWEs. These allow someone to reduce countable earnings due to out-of-pocket expenses that are related to their disability and that they need to go to work. So the expenses have to be directly related to the disability. The cost has to be paid out of the person's pocket and not covered by other funding sources. The expenses must be paid in a month the wages are earned, and the expense must be reasonable. So I always think you have to pay for it yourself to go to work because of your disability. And Social Security offers a lot of examples of this, which I'm going to jump to for just a second. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't give you a bunch of examples. Sorry about that. Some examples of this may be paratransit services. If the person has to pay anything for durable medical equipment, if they have to pay anything for kind of medical supplies, anything for prescriptions, if you just are paying for anything that's kind of out of the ordinary, but it's because of your disability to go to work, you can put it forward to the claims rep and see if they'll agree to it. So for example, you, let's say you were somebody who was deaf and you needed your cell phone to complete your work activities, to communicate with your coworkers, you might put that forward as something that you're paying for yourself to go to work because of your disability. So just because it's not all documented by Social Security as an example doesn't mean that you can't check in with the claims rep to see if it's something that they will count. So we're going to look at Anna. Anna is working part-time and uses paratransit service to get to work. She earns $10 an hour and works 30 hours a week, so she's earning about $1,200 per month. Her paratransit services cost $5 per trip, and she works 5 days per week, so that's 10 trips. So we're going to look at what happens if she has an IRWE of $200. We're going to take her gross wages of $1,200, apply it to the formula. So we remove the first $20, which is the general income exclusion. We're down to $1,180. Then because Anna earned the money, we deduct another $65, the earned income exclusion. We're down to $1,115. Then we're going to subtract the $200 impairment-related work expense. So Anna's down even lower to $915. Then we divide by 2, and her countable income will be $457.50, much lower than the $1,200 that she received. But that's going to be deducted from her full benefit rate. So Anna will receive an SSI check of $277.50, which along with her gross wages of $1,200 brings her to $1,275.50. You can see how these allow a person to work and keep more of their earnings. So Anna's going to be able to recoup some of the money that she spent to go to work. There's no time limits in using IRWEs. They don't have to be a monthly expense in order to claim it, and they may be a large expense. So somebody may have purchased something, maybe they had, costs they had to cover related to a durable medical item, and they can spread that over several months. They can work with the claims rep to do that. When you're reporting your wages, you're going to want to make sure that you submit a request to claim the IRWE, and you're going to want to provide receipts with that. You don't have to provide original things to the Social Security Administration. You can give them copies, and then you want to make sure that you keep the original and that you're always making copies and keeping proof of everything that's been done with SSI. The SSI claims rep will review your IRWE request along with the receipts. They may contact you with questions. You'll want to talk to them about how often you plan to be making that request and how they would like to work with you moving forward to make sure that your request is approved and that they have all of the information that they receive. And then you want to document all of your conversations with Social Security, keep good notes, just in case your claims rep changes or there's any discrepancy in the future about what was decided. Another work incentive is blind work expenses. These are similar to IRWIs, but they're specifically for individuals who meet Social Security's definition of blindness, and they allow blind SSI beneficiaries to reduce countable earnings due to any cost incurred to go to work. So remember, for IRWIs, it was, I pay for it to myself to go to work because of my disability. For blind work expenses, it's, I pay for it myself to go to work. It doesn't have to be disability related. So that's a really great benefit to folks that are blind. Some examples might be taxes. I mean, taxes take a chunk of everybody's check, right? So if you're a blind SSI beneficiary, then you can deduct the taxes that are deducted out of your check from your, as one of your blind work expenses. But you also may have other costs, maybe costs related to a service animal, to transportation back and forth to work. You can deduct meals during work. You can deduct any attendant services you're paying for, anything you're paying for yourself to go to work. Sorry about that. So let's take a quick look at Randy. Randy works part-time. He earns $10 an hour, working 30 hours a week, earning $1,200 per month. Randy's pay stub shows that he paid $200 in taxes this pay period. He is blind, and he's requesting that the taxes be deducted as a blind work expense. So he's got his gross wages. We subtract the general income exclusion because there's no unearned income that we've already just subtracted it from. We're going to subtract $65 because Randy earned this money. It's the earned income exclusion. We're going to divide the remainder, $1,115 divided by 2. We get down to $557.50, and then we deduct the $200 in blind work expenses. So Randy earned $1,200. His countable income is $357.50. And when we deduct that from the full benefit rate that he's entitled to, he gets an adjusted SSI of $377.50, which when you add to his SSI gives him $1,557.50, but we want to remember that he did have taxes taken out. So his net will be $1,377.50. So I'm going to quickly point out to you that we used the same numbers for Randy and for Anna, but Randy had total countable income of $357.50, and some of you may have caught that Anna had total income of $457.50. So the reason that that happens is that the calculations are actually a little bit different, and folks who claim blind work expenses get a little bit more of their SSI, get to keep a little bit more of the full benefit rate than the folks claiming IRWIs. It's the same rules as the IRWIs. When you're reporting your blind work expenses, you want to make sure that you work with a claims rep, that you bring them documentation of the costs you've paid, receipts or your payroll checks so they can see the taxes. You always want to submit pay stubs, and you want to talk to them about how to do reporting in the future. Another work incentive we're going to talk about is the Plan for Achieving Self-Support, or PASS plan. Sometimes an individual wants to go to work, but they really need to save money to purchase something or to pay for some of the employment supports that they need in order to go to work. And when you're held to a $2,000 asset limit, that can seem a little bit perplexing, how you're going to save the money that you need when you aren't really in a program that focuses on having you save. So the Plan for Achieving Self-Support allows you to save money towards a work goal and have that money set aside, and it will not count against your $2,000 resource limit. The benefit of the PASS plan is that it really lets you think outside of the box. It lets you think through, what do I really want to do? How do I really want to spend my time in my work life? Is there something, a reach goal that I have that I'd like to explore saving money to achieve. The PASS plan is the tool that lets you do that and gives you a vehicle to saving for that plan. So in order to participate, you have to have a specific work goal. You complete an application for a PASS that asks for specific time frames for reaching the goal, asks you to identify what money other than SSI do you have to set aside towards your goal. You can't set aside your SSI into a PASS. SSI is only for food and shelter. You have to show how money and resources will be saved and later spent. So if you're perhaps saving for, let's say you're saving for a certificate program, then you would need to be able to show that you know the cost of the program, you know how to participate, you meet the eligibility rules, you have a plan for how you're going to save money, and that you're going to be able to demonstrate that that's what you use the funds for. This is all provided to PASS cadres who approve the plan and then work with the individual to put the money in a bank account that the individual holds and report back to the PASS cadre at appropriate intervals. So let's take a quick look at Shauna. Shauna's working part-time. She too is earning $10 an hour, working 30 hours a week, earning $1,200 per month. She's decided to invest in a PASS plan to save towards her own business. And in the example, you guys are getting used to this. We deduct $20 because it's a general income exclusion. We subtract $65 because she earned the income. We divide the remainder by 2. And then she's going to invest all of her remaining countable wages into a PASS plan. So she's going to invest $557.50 of her $1,200 in gross wages into the PASS plan. So this brings her countable income to 0. So since she has $0 in countable income, Shauna is eligible for her full SSI check, which is $735. So she has $1,200 in gross wages plus $735 in SSI minus the $557.50 that she's investing into her PASS plan. So she's going to have $1,377.50 to live off of, almost double what her SSI was to start with, right? And she's able to invest $557.50 into herself, into her plan to have a business. So it's a really incredible opportunity for her and a way that folks can really leverage the power of the work incentives to help them meet their personal goals. We are providing you with some information. There's general information on PASS plans. There's a link right on Social Security's website. And then Cornell University created a beautiful resource tool that you can use to write a PASS plan online. And it allows, it's password protected, your account, so you can start a PASS plan, leave it to go get more information or to talk to other supports, go back to it. You can print it out as a completed PASS application. It guides you through the entire process and is really quite easy to use. So I just want to remind folks again that when you receive SSI, substantial gainful activity isn't your marker. It's not going to be part of your SSI experience. It's only a required component of the process when people are being looked at for eligibility for Social Security disability benefits in general. But once you're onboarded onto the SSI program, it's a pretty simple thing. The more income you have coming in, the less you're entitled to your SSI cash benefit. And those formulas demonstrate that. If you need a ceiling, a marker of, okay, well, I want to go to work, how much can I really earn? Then the focus becomes less on the cash benefit, because the more you earn, the more you have an income, the less of a cash benefit you're going to receive. And the focus shifts to, okay, well, at what point do I lose my Medicaid? And that's where you want to be focused on that 1619B and the state threshold amount, which again for this year for the state of Texas is $34,821. If folks should go through this process and they find that they reach a point where their SSI benefits are actually terminated. So to do that, I would have to go over my state threshold amount. I would have to not be eligible for my cash benefit or for my Medicaid benefit for 12 months in a row. So it's not that easy to become completely off the rolls of SSI. So sometimes when folks say, like, I started working and I didn't get a check again, it may be that it was a problem in reporting to the local office, that if you lost your job 4 months later and you didn't let them know, then they didn't reinstate your check. But if it does happen that you come off of the SSI rolls and because of your disability you're not able to work and you need to come back on, there's a new provision, well, new in the last 15 years, called expedited reinstatement. Expedited reinstatement provides a new level of protection for folks. It's a safety net, and it allows you, if you have your benefits terminated due to excess earned income or a combination of earned and unearned income, then you can request that you come back on the rolls. For folks who receive SSI, you can be reinstated without a new application if you're not performing SGA in the month you apply. So remember, performing SGA is really to let them know whether or not you meet that definition of disability. So Social Security is going to check again to see if you meet the definition of disability. Are you able to work and earn at a substantial level? And then, are you not able to work at SGA because of your medical condition? So we're back to that definition. Is your medical impairment the same or is it different? And you need to request this benefit within 5 years from the month that you were removed from the rolls. Just one more thing on EXR. So when people apply for that expedited reinstatement, they're provided 6 months of provisional benefits. And if you meet the eligibility to come back onto the rolls, great. And if you don't have to pay back those 6 months. And if you don't want to go through expedited reinstatement, you always have the option of doing a new application. And when we get to the benefit planners, they're the kind of knowledgeable individual who can help you make that choice. And you can also talk to the Social Security office about that. So for anybody who receives SSI or SSDI, understanding how to report your wages is really important. For folks who receive SSI, wages are counted in the month that you earned the money. So anything you have coming in the month, unearned money, earned money, some of the income that we didn't talk about, like deemed income, all counts in the time when it's received. So if your earnings for your work in the month of May don't come to you until June, that check that you get in June counts for June. Any money that you got in May counts for May. So it's all going to count in the month that it's received. And that income that you receive in a month impacts the amount of your future SSI cash benefit because SSI is based on retrospective accounting. You can imagine that Social Security wants to make sure that you receive your SSI payment on the first of the month for that month. So this means that they have to predict what your income is going to be for that month before they process the amount of the check that you're going to receive. So SSI bases the current payment on the circumstances that it knows, your patterns of earnings, how much they have noted that you receive in unearned income or earned income. And this process includes two elements, a computation month, so that's based on the individual or the couple's income, resources, and other factors in the month the individual will receive a potential SSI payment, and the budget month, which is a computation which is generally based on the income from 2 months prior to the month for which payment is being computed. And if you're feeling confused about that, welcome to the club. It can be very confusing, but what you want to make sure you understand is kind of in this example. In February, Joe is not working and has no income. SSA uses this information to budget an estimated payment for April. So in which case, he has no income in February, right? So in April, he's going to be eligible for his full federal benefit rate. But Joe starts working on April 10th, which is his computation month. So the money he earns in April impacts the amount that he should have gotten for April. And because they thought at the time that they were making this assessment that he had zero money, he'd have zero money in April, but then he did have money in April, he's got an overpayment. And this is what happens to folks. One of the things that scares folks from working is that because SSI uses this retroactive accounting, it's nearly impossible to avoid an overpayment. So we need to make sure that people understand that overpayments are going to happen. There are some strategies you can use to limit how much of an overpayment you have, but it's very hard to avoid them completely. And if anyone on the line has operated some good strategies for avoiding overpayments, we would love to talk to you and get your input on what you've done. But overpayments are just a function of the fact that Social Security predicts in February how much money you're going to have in April. And for any of us who are trying to predict that, it's pretty easy to not get it right. So if an overpayment occurs and due to a person returning to work and they have been reporting properly, they can request for a waiver of the overpayment, and we've provided you with a form to do that. But it's really helpful to be working with your claims rep so you can understand when to report, how to report, what are your options, so that you can be working hand in hand to avoid those overpayments. So here's how to get started on understanding those wage reporting requirements. You need to report them to the local field office. You're going to want to make sure that they receive your pay stubs with the name of your employer, the number of hours you're working per week, or if you haven't started yet, the number you expect to work per week, or your hourly wage, or your salary, a combination of all of that, the start date and the end date if applicable. So if you are just on the line today realizing, oh, I'm working or I'm supporting a lot of people to work and we've never done that, and people start in and stop jobs, you want to make sure that they know that. And then you always want to make sure that your Social Security number, the person receiving SSI, their Social Security number is included in all correspondence. So you want to make sure you're giving your wage data. So you want to provide a copy of your paycheck stubs. Always keep the originals for yourself. And you can provide those copies, make sure your name's on it and your Social Security number's on it, because not every employer does that. And you want to have it faxed, hand-delivered, or mailed to your local office. And then if you're going to be using some work incentives, remember you want to be reporting those as well and providing information to support those work incentives. Whether it's the student earned income exclusion, the IRWI, the blind work expense, the PASS, you're going to want to make sure that you're providing the proper documentation or the receipts so that you are advising the claims rep that you have these work incentives, that you want to apply them. You also get a work activity report, and sometimes people don't realize that that's another opportunity to share with Social Security some of the work incentives that you've been using. So I know we're falling short on time, and people have been sending a lot of questions into the chat box, but we want to provide you a few additional employment supports. And you can always email myself or my colleagues with questions that didn't get answered. One is the WIPAs, the Benefits and Work Incentive Advisement folks. So the WIPAs are the Work Incentive Planning and Assistance Projects, and they can help you to make the decision to work, the effect of employment on benefits and work incentives and provisions. They can provide you some referrals if you need them to other supports. The WIPAs really focus on people who have a job offer. So if you're somebody who's thinking about going to work, the WIPAs will not prioritize you. They're not really who you're not really who they're intended to serve. But there are other ways to get that information, and You can do that by going to the email address, the web address we were provided, so sorry, choosework.net. There's a Find Help button there, and you can find other groups that are providing benefits planning in your local area. You can also find the WIPAs and reach out to them to see what level of support you can provide. And there's a toll-free number to call, the Ticket to Work helpline, where they can also help you understand some of your benefits. If you have any problem connecting with your WIPA, or you have a problem on the job, maybe you're facing discrimination on the job, or you're having a specific issue related to your disability, you can contact the Protection and Advocacy for Beneficiaries of Social Security. In the state of Texas, it's Disability Rights Texas, and every state has a PAB, so again, you can go to the ChooseWork website and click Find Help. But they're there to provide you some support, and they pay particular attention to systemic issues. So if you've noticed in your state a lot of people have this same thing happen to them, that would be a really great information to pass on to the PABs. And then every state has different employment programs that you can connect to. Every state has vocational rehabilitation services for both individuals with disabilities and for blind individuals. Independent living services for older individuals who are blind. In the state of Texas, there's purchasing from people with disabilities and business enterprises of Texas, and you can get to those programs here. If you are interested in figuring out who in my state or who nationally can help me return to work, and you are somebody who receives SSI or SSDI and are ages 18 to 64, then the Ticket to Work program may be a good option for you, and you can learn more about it by calling the toll-free number 1-866-968-7842 or going to chooseworkttw.net so that you can get more information. They have a lot of archived webinars that give you really great information, overviews of some of the work incentives, and information on how to choose a provider under the Ticket to Work program, which can be very helpful. As you earn money, you're going to be wanting to think about not only how does this money impact my SSI and my Medicaid benefits, but also what else can I do? Are there other things, ways I can be empowered around my money as I earn more? What are some safe ways to save? What are some ways to manage my money effectively? And there's a lot of free financial capability resources to help you with that. We at National Disability Institute offer some free self-paced training. One can help you even think through what are my financial goals. United Way in Texas offers free tax preparation, so they can help you make sure that you are claiming your taxes and your tax credits that you're entitled to. Texas also offers a financial toolbox, which is free financial education, and Raise Texas is a real leader in asset building around the country, and they have some great programs that can help you if you're interested in better understanding your money, your credit, and building assets. So before we leave you, we want to offer you a few action steps that you can take. I know you got a lot of information today, so you may want to reach out to us or reach out to someone else in your home state who can help you understand this a little bit more clearly. We have a lot of archived webinars on our website, realeconomicimpact.org, that can help you understand a bit of this as well. And we'll be launching in the state of Texas a free self-paced learning course so that you can better understand these benefits in more detail. But if you're on the line and you're thinking about returning to work, I want to encourage you to take a little time to explore some of the available employment support programs that we talked about. Maybe you want to think about assigning your Ticket to Work or join with vocational rehabilitation or connect with your local Center for Independent Living. I also encourage you to meet with a benefits planner, whether it's one of the WIPA programs or an organization who provides benefits planning. That service should always be free to you, so if anybody tries to charge you, please proceed with caution. That's not the norm. The service should be free to you, and again, you can go to choosework.net to find help. But you want to make sure that you're making a decision about the impact of work on your benefits with really good information. And then complete one financial capability activity. We gave you some free self-paced courses in this webinar, or connect with a group that may be able to provide you with more resources. And then set a goal to complete items 1, 2, and 3 over the next 3 months, and that will be great stepping stones for you making your way back to work or being able to make an informed decision about returning to work. We're right on the hour, so I just want to say a special thank you to the Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities. If you want to see this archive or the archive of the SSDI webinar, they'll be available to you at tcdd.texas.gov. Thank you to the Council for their funding for this project. And if you would like to reach out to us at National Disability Institute, either to view some of our archived webinars at realeconomicimpact.org or to ask us some specific questions, you can reach my colleague Katie Metz at kmetz@ndi-inc.org, or myself, Elizabeth Jennings, at ejennings@ndi-inc.org. There's lots of other ways to connect with us if you're interested: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Flickr, Tumblr. And we'd be really happy to hear from you and happy to provide you with some additional support. So once again, thank you to the Texas Council for Developmental Disabilities, to Katie Metz, to Maggie Redden, to our captioner, who I'm sure was struggling to keep up with me. I'm sorry about that. And to all of you who joined us today. We hope you have good information to make good decisions, and please call on us to help you however we can. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.